Hey everyone, today I'm going to customize this cold steel Norse hawk. I bought this some time ago and I've been needing to make this one match up my other cold steel Norse hawks, so I decided I'm going to do this in a video. To give you an idea of how I'm going to make it look, it's going to be like this. So I take the finish off the head, I patina the head, I shorten the handle, fit the handle, I do the burn rings, I apply tongue oil to it, and I do not use the set screw. So I'm going to do that right now. First thing I'm going to do, as I said, is I don't use the set screw personally because I've found that the set screw doesn't really serve its purpose on these tomahawks at all. It doesn't secure the head, and what ends up happening is when the head does move, it just marks up the handle. So I just don't use them. Here's an example of one that I did use the set screw on, and as you can see, when the head moved, it just gouged up the wood. So I don't find that those set screws are good for much. So now that the set screw is off, handle is off, and the first thing I'm going to do is take the finish off of this handle that it already has, and I will fit the head. In this case, to get the finish off, I'm just going to scrape it off. It does work pretty well. It gets the finish off very fast. And you can actually stop right after scraping and just start doing the burn rings or the finish if you want. Traditionally, that's how it was often done on axes. I do sand it just to make sure everything is nice and smooth, but I'll do the scraping now and then we'll move on from there. And there we go. The finish is now off. Didn't take long at all. Doesn't use sandpaper. So all around it is a very good method to smooth the handle. Now you'll notice I didn't do the whole handle. I left this part just as it was because I'm not going to be using this part of it anyways. So there's no reason for me to take the finish off of there. Here's one of the handles that I have almost finished. And as you can see, it is quite a bit shorter. This handle is only this long. And as you can see, I did the scraping all the way up to here, so I even did more than I needed. But that's why it is I'm not going to bother scraping here. So here's the two pieces of sandpaper I'm going to use. I have 180 and I have 240 grit. I'm not going to go super fine because number one, the rougher the wood is, it helps the tongue oil get in better. But also, the other reason is I'm going to be actually using this tomahawk for throwing, so I'm not worried about making it super pretty. Of course, I don't want any splinters, but you know, it is a bit utilitarian in this case. So here it is. The handle is pretty smooth now. You can absolutely go a higher grit if you want, but again, for me, keep in mind, this is going to be for throwing, so I'm not worried about making it too pretty. I just want it to be so that the handle doesn't have any splinters. From here, the way I like to fit the handle is I will take a rubber mallet, or in this case a dead blow hammer, tap on the top of the handle, and it'll show where it needs to be taken away. I'm wearing the gloves for safety, obviously. This blade isn't sharp, but still a good idea to wear gloves. The fit is actually pretty good. As you can see, there's a little bit of wood being shaved away. So little that I'm just going to get that with sandpaper. Normally I would do this fitting with either the scraper or a file, but I already knew the fit was pretty good, so that's why I didn't do that. I got the head fitted, took a little longer than I thought, but that's okay. I'm now going to shorten the handle, and then I'm going to round the end. I'm sure you've noticed I haven't even dealt with this end yet. That's because I'm going to be rounding up the end on my belt sander, so I'm just going to do this end at the same time. Okay, I've got the end rounded. The reason why I like the rounded end on a tomahawk is partially from my experience when using bokken, which are Japanese wooden swords. I prefer a more rounded end because it's more comfortable on the palm. But also what I've found is this more domed shape is more durable, and plus I like the way it looks. Now from here, I'm going to do the burn marks that are on this tomahawk handle, and I will first make some marks to mark where it is I need it to stop, and then I'll do the rest.
Ven conmigo, mi amorcito es vikingo. No te marches de mi vera, yo te sigo a donde vayas. Me dijiste que me amabas y yo te entregué mi alma. Me marchita la conciencia si no huelo tu fragancia. Y es que solo me contengo, mi pasión la llevo dentro. Ver tus curvas enloquece y así mi amiguito crece. Carnecita, buen bocado, mucho tiempo esperando. Y ahora que llegaste es la hora de arriesgarse. Vamos a bailar los dos en nuestro amor. Yeah. Tengo que danzar por ti, tú por mí. Sabrosito, muéstrame tu flor, oh diosa del glamour. Oh yeah. Póstrate ante mí, tú eres mi destino, my love. bonita, yo te quiero, voy a ser tu caballero. Eres la mujer suprema, me planteas gran dilema. Elegirte de entre todas, que por mí las tengo locas. Qué difícil, qué problema.
The burn rings are now done. Took a little bit longer because it's a little bit windy out here. So I'm now going to let this cool off just a little bit because it is definitely still warm. And while this is cooling down, we will start the work on the head. First thing I'm going to do to the head is strip this finish off. The finish on the newer cold steel tomahawks actually looks pretty nice. But the problem is two things for me. Number one, they scratch Taiwan right into the blade, which I don't mind that it is made in Taiwan, but I don't want it to say Taiwan right on the blade of my tomahawk. The other thing is my other two tomahawks have a vinegar patina, so if I leave this, it's not going to match. So I am going to take this finish off, and then we'll carry on from there. I'm going to be wearing a respirator, so there's not going to be a whole lot of talking at this point. This tomahawk head does have paint on it, so take all safety precautions. Wear a respirator, wear safety glasses, and since we are working with a wire wheel, wear gloves. Okay, change of plan. I'm going to bead blast this finish off because I was just wire wheeling this for over 10 minutes straight. And I barely got any progress. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of progress, but as you can see, I mean, that's just on the surface. That went all the way through, but that took a long time to do. So I'm just going to bead blast this off. So here it is now. As you can see, I ended up having to bead blast this off. The new finish is much tougher than the old finish that was used on the cold steel tomahawks. But that's off, and I think it looks good, and it'll be ready for the patina after I sharpen it. I am now going to sharpen it, and I'm going to apply the tongue oil to the handle. The tongue oil is now on the handle. I will give this 24 hours to dry, and then I will give it some more coats of tongue oil. I'm sure you noticed that I also shortened this handle. That's because if you remember right, I cut this a little bit longer than I needed, which I did on purpose, so that way I could shorten it down to what I wanted. So that is now done. The blade is now functionally sharp. I will be giving this a final edge after I do the patina on this. By the way, a word of caution, if you are doing a tung oil finish or lots of other wood oil finishes, be very careful with the rags because the rags are capable of spontaneous combustion, meaning if you leave the rag just sit there, it can actually catch on fire. So what I do is, for right now, the rags I used are in my quench tank right here, and when I'm done, I'm going to put them in a fire ring that is on the property. That way, if they do decide to catch fire, it's not going to be a big deal. They'll just burn out in the fire ring. It's a pit that has a lid on it, so not a huge deal. But of course, since these have been soaking in water, that means that they should be less likely to spontaneously combust. This tomahawk head got a little bit of rust on it from being bead blasted and the sharpening and everything else. Even in that little bit of time, there's a little bit of rust on it. So I'm going to wire wheel this right now. Plus, this is also going to make it more likely to have the same finish as the tomahawk that I'm trying to copy. Just to give you an idea of how different it looks, there's the bead blasted side and there's the wire wheeled side. So definitely a difference. Next up, I'm going to do the patina on this. I'm going to do the patina on this one as well while I'm at it. To do the patina, I just use a plastic container like this, fill it up with boiling vinegar, then have a wire, and make sure the container is big enough that the tomahawk head can be in there completely submerged. In this case, as you can see, I had to put it in and out at an angle, but that's not a big deal. The patina is done. I have also finished sharpening the blade, and I finished the tung oil on the handle. And in case you're wondering, they do cut paper. And that's pretty much as sharp as I ever go with a tomahawk that I am designating for throwing. I could have made these edges sharp enough to shave hair, but the way I look at it is if it's a tomahawk that's going to be used for throwing, first off, it doesn't need to be that sharp to stick in a target, but also if that edge hits a knot or if it ends up being a bad throw and the tomahawk bounces off the target and hits a rock when the edge hits the ground, or maybe the tomahawk goes over or under the target, that hair shaving edge won't be hair shaving anymore. And here's the tomahawk I just customized in comparison to the other two. They do have some minor differences, such as the one I just customized is one of the newer ones that has the set screw hole on the side, as opposed to the older ones that had that hole in the back. There are other differences as well, such as the one in the middle has more of the handle sticking out past the head, which I generally prefer. Also, the tomahawk on the far left has a true oil handle finish, as opposed to the other two, which are tung oil, but for the purposes of throwing, they're close enough. Here's an up close of the patina that I did on the head of that tomahawk. And here's one of the other ones, but the patina is much older and it's had more time to age. So as this finish ages, it just looks better. And it's just a really nice finish that looks awesome on a tomahawk, in my opinion, because it's a nice rustic finish. The next thing I'm going to do is make two more kydex sheaths that will match this one here, because I only have one kydex sheath for one of the tomahawks, so the other two don't have sheaths, and I prefer to have a sheath for my tomahawks. but I'm going to do that in another video. If you're interested in having any of these services done to a tomahawk or any of the other weapons that I've shown, check out my website at studentofwarcustoms.com. You can find out how to email me there. Also, the music in this video was made by a good friend of mine named Lo Belver. Check out his channel. I'll have timestamps in this video with the title of each song that was played, along with a link to that song, and there will also be a link to his channel. Definitely check out his channel. He makes some really good music. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next video.